Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Today we are gonna talk about. Just want to come on stage and I just want to welcome everybody to Leading with Light. Today we're talking about rebuilding confidence, voice, and vision after burnout. And today promises to be good. Please make sure that you put your stuff in the chat so that I can actually see you and I can hear your points, the points that you're going to be making. And so the discussion today is all about how we move into a space where we feel like we are bleeding quietly, how we get out of that space so we can lead with purpose and from our overflow. So who is this discussion for? I'd love to talk to you and to let you know who this discussion will benefit, as I said in the ad already. If you're showing up for everyone but quietly running on empty, you feel like your voice has been muted and your vision blurred by exhaustion, you want to heal what burnout tried to bury. And so today we want to unpack how burnout erodes self-trust and clarity, the practical ways to reclaim your voice and your boldness. Those are the two things we want to look at in this series. And in part two, we want to look at the purpose strategies to rebuild vision without pressure and the biblical truths that you will need to guide you on your leadership comeback. And that is very important for those who want to lead from an overflow. So welcome to today's audio live. I help faith-driven leaders like you walk boldly in your God-given calling, even when life has drained your strength and blurred your confidence. If you ever said, I don't feel like myself anymore, or I've been showing up but not fully present, this conversation is for you. And today we are talking about what many don't say out loud, and that is leading while feeling empty, smiling while silently struggling, being successful but feeling stuck. And so you're not here by accident if you're in this session. You're here because you want to rebuild your vision, the vision that aligns with your soul. And that's very important. I'm sorry about the camera. Something went wrong with my camera. Thank God it is fixed. And you know, I am a motivational speaker, Dr. Marcia Thomas, Christian leadership consultant and life purpose and career coach. And so here we go on how to rebuild your confidence, your voice, and your vision. So I always prepare these slides by popular request so you can follow even after we're finished with this discussion. All right. So we want to move into understanding that side of it. Purpose doesn't retire, it gets restored. And sometimes your purpose might be put on hold because of the choices, because of the exhaustion, because of the burnout, because of the disadvantaged position you may find yourself in, but your purpose takes hold on you. And if you listen deep enough, as I said, if you did your soul nourishment, your soul healing, your soul retrieval, all of that will come into place, even if you're tired, because you just take a pause, you rest. Your purpose doesn't retire, it gets restored. And if you're tired, that is not a crime, it's not a sinful thing. You are not failing. You just need to pause, to rebuild, to see what triggers you and how you trigger others, and to recover the strategic actions that are in you, and so you can put them out there. How burnout subtly erodes your self-trust and clarity is one of the talking points today, as I said, and reclaiming your voice as a leader or a woman of faith. And so the other two, rediscovering your vision without pressure or comparison, and the mindset from survivor to spiritual builder, will be in the next series coming next week. So you want to be prepared for that. So my theme for These last sessions have been that you need to create a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside. The good thing about leadership and life, because that's what we talk about in these sessions, leadership and life, is that God doesn't throw away weary leaders, He equips them. Thank you for joining, Franklin. Thank you, Sonia, for joining. Anna, I don't want to spoil your name. Anna, I'll leave it at Anna. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. It's a pleasure having you. And there are others that want to join, there are others watching on YouTube. I want to thank you also. So as I was saying, God doesn't throw away weary leaders. He equips them. He equips them if you're tired, soul fatigue. We looked at it last week. If your soul is tired, if you're exhausted, if you're feeling empty and unfulfilled, if you are achieving, if you are going the ropes, you are confidently looking to others, but you are struggling, we call it leaking on the inside, then God will equip you, but you have to be realistic. You have to face the issues. And as we said last week, purpose starvation is one of the greatest burnout that persons experience without knowing. And purpose starvation is pouring very well, very eloquently, and very effectively into a calling that is not yours. So you're good at your role and your responsibilities, and you are doing very well. You may even be getting accolades and applause. You may be on the top of your game, but there is still this unfulfillment, this sadness, this grieving, or this gap that just cannot be filled. You're feeling guilty and you don't know what crime you have committed. That is purpose starvation. So purpose starvation is really different from being weary or exhausted. Doing what you love, but losing yourself in the process is also purpose starvation. Your purpose carries you, and there is self-actualization and significance in purpose. So let's see how you lose your confidence and lose yourself and get burnt out. What are some of the signs that you are losing yourself? You second guess yourself. You're good at what you're doing. You're responsible. You're accountable. You're self-aware. But somewhere along the line, this exhaustion, this soul fatigue, this tiredness that needs to be filled inside of you, this alignment with your core values, with your profession, your life and your family, this balance, that imbalance is creating a distance and a divide between your soul and your expectations, your goals, and your calling and purpose. And so you constantly seek validation before making decisions. You can't hit send without asking 3 people what they think. And you say to yourself, when did I become like this? If you take time enough to listen to yourself, you ask yourself, when did I become so dependent on persons validating my decisions? When did I start mistrusting myself so much? Good morning, Lisa. Thanks for joining. You're with Franklin, you're with Sonia, with Anne, and a few others. Hope you have a great day. I would say you need to begin to trust the Holy Spirit's nudge before crowding yourself or so with sourcing opinions. You have to be sure, because if you're making the right decision and not the popular decision, then you're going to be finding that that in itself is a lonely place. A lot of persons like when you make the popular decision. When you make the right decision, you tend to put many persons on edge who would applaud you or who you would want to give you that type of approval. And they are not going to, because it does not serve their agenda, personal agenda, or their purpose. And as I said before in a previous session, these persons who are the silent critics operate as if they are with you and that they are in your decisions, but in their informal structure, they are very disgruntled, very disengaged, and they are bent on dividing. And so you want to be able to trust yourself. So you can't second guess yourself when you feel burnt out. You can't make your purpose starvation push you into silence or push you into doubting yourself. You have to continue believing in yourself. And so you have to reduce your reliance on external validation before making your decision. You have to understand in your gut feeling, way down in your soul, what is best for you. And when you make that decision, you make it in the best interest of those who depend on you and who you serve. So there is a mutual benefit for all involved. And that we call trusting the Holy Spirit's nudge. And stop crowding out yourself with sourcing opinions. And I'm not saying opinions don't matter, because last week we explained that if you have wise counselors, mentors, coaches, destiny helpers, and divine gatekeepers, then of course, if you're in a network, you can ask for opinions. That would really be confirmation of what is the vision that has been given to you. Now, in an organization where you are forced to second guess yourself, it means that your workplace is toxic. It also means that there is lack of consensus. The team spirit and team engagement has waned. And so you are now in a multitude of witnesses that are ready to accuse you should something go wrong. And so you have to understand that you have to make these decisions consciously and not second guess yourself. Hello, Nicole. Thanks for joining. As I was telling Lisa, you're here with a lot of persons. You're here with Sonia Franklin. You're here with Anne and a few others. All right. I also want you to understand that sometimes you'll find yourself overthinking even after you have made the decision. You have lost your confidence. So you replay conversations and you double check your choices or look for hidden mistakes even when there are none. Because you want to make sure that you please everybody. When you want to please everybody, when you are so concerned on not serving everybody, but pleasing everybody, then you have lost your confidence. And it makes you replay conversations to find out if you did this right, if you did this wrong, and so on. Although you would have put a lot of facts and data and thoughts together to come up with that decision. A decision that you knew when you looked at the facts, when you looked at the data, when you analyzed it, that is the best decision for everyone. But no, after you have made the decision and the grumbling and the stress and the annoyance that people are expressing, even though it is a great and it is the best decision, make you replay conversations and look for hidden meanings. Don't do that to yourself. You have to decide, you have to document, and you have to move on. You have to practice trusting the wisdom that God gave you and the discernment as you interpreted the data that is very familiar to everyone and very available to everyone. When you sat with those persons who could give you anecdotal information to substantiate the data, you took everything into consideration, you took the consensus from where you were, and you made that decision. You just need to document and move on. When you stay at that place, constantly double checking your choices and looking for hidden meanings, you continue to erode your confidence. So you want to build back your confidence by making sure that you move using all the information that you have, that you take the time to assimilate the data and collect, and you look for your themes, you look for the common threads, and you look for the anomalies and what will not work, and you sit down, you make the candid, factual, strategic presentation, and you just document and move on. You make the choices that are in the best interest of everyone based on what you have to use. And don't let anybody force you into serving them alone or trying to please everyone. And then you have this thing where you procrastinate, not because you, not because you don't have the wherewithal to do it, but because you have this fear of being wrong. You don't want to be wrong. And so you over analyze, and you're stuck in analysis paralysis because of the environment that you now find yourself in your home. People double checking you, people feeling that you have favorites and that you're not serving their best interests, that you don't care about them enough because their love language might just be different, and so on. People in your workplace, and you have to understand that those things happen, but you must never allow persons, emotions, and feelings, and not facts, delay your project because you want to be perfect. Remember, we looked at a session and we say sometimes excellence is masked. Sometimes fear and this sense of not being good enough or being an imposter makes you actually mask that through excellence, trying to overachieve, overcommitting, and also trying to be perfect. Well, the thing about it, there is no human being that is perfect. So if you want to be perfect, you may have to become an angel, or you may have to clone yourself and create a self that knows everything and knows what to do every time, and that is not possible. So perfection should not be used as a disguise for fear. You must mark your progress, and you must value where you are, the steps you are taking. Even if they are small, you must value your small achievements. And as you look at the difference that you are making, where you started and how far you have gone, then you must use this progress to build trust in your voice and get back the confidence in yourself, and stop letting this fear of achievement, of not being good enough, of being seen as inadequate or irrelevant or incompetent drive you into the ground, because that in itself burns you out. You can, if you're in an environment, narcissistic in relationships or in your workplace, toxic demand callers, I call them, you find that you will be driven down to the ground, because wearing out yourself to please people who really don't want you to please them because they don't know what they want and they are not pleasing themselves can become a heavy burden to bear. And when you objectively make your choices, when you use your facts, when you use the decision, your burnout will come from being tired because you have worked hard and you are achieving, as against being tired because you don't know what else to do or how else to serve. That's a different burnout than working hard. Your body becomes tired, your brain needs a break. That will allow you to rest. So rest is not burnout, and rest is not a crime. Neither is it saying that you're failing. Rest means that you have accomplished enough to take a break, to look at what you have done, to see what went well, what could have been done differently, and what are the next action steps that you will take in pursuit of a desired goal. And we want to be clear about that, because sometimes the persons that are on our team become very cruel comforters. And Job found himself with some miserable comforters just like that, who made demands and who felt that they must be served individually instead of looking out for the whole. And in organizations where you find persons with those types of tendencies, you will find that you get weary very often, not from physical accomplishment or work, but from these drainers and joy killers and naysayers that you have around you. And that burnout is harder to shake than a physical weariness that comes from working hard. Ah, Nicole, I see you. You used to feel that way often. Now I trust the evidence. Very good. So do I. The goals I've repeatedly achieved, and trust my intuition to guide my decisions. Perfectly put. And so I am sharing that because your confidence is intact, very intact. That is where I want the persons who are listening to me to get to that point where your awareness comes from working hard and from achieving goals and not from people pleasing and not trying to serve naysayers and joy killers and narcissism in the shapes and forms that they come in your home, in your work, and in your community. Because sometimes the drainers are not from a workplace per se, it's from who you go home to. It's in the family, the stress, the demands, the expectation, the grief, the loss that you're experiencing in those other parts and pockets of your life that makes you a whole person. Very good. We have to keep looking at the evidence and we have to trust the evidence so that it can guide our decisions. Love that point. Very good point. Thank you so much. And then we find that we feel tension. We feel a lot of tension as we try, every time we try to lead boldly, this tension comes up. So you dim your voice in meetings and pull back your ideas or defer even when you're the most qualified, because there is a voice that is too loud, someone who is making too much noise, an empty barrel. And that makes you dim your voice in meetings because it's too challenging. It's too challenging to convince them. It's too challenging to have a conversation. It's too challenging to even show them what you are saying. And some persons feel that your voice is too loud, meaning you are sharing too much. And that in itself can make you step back and dim your voice in the places where it counts. And we are not to do that. That destroys your confidence much more than you know. Sometimes you say you're doing it for peace sake and for the well-being of everyone. But when when your voice is dim, who speaks for those who have no voice in that organization because of a lack of qualification, because of a lack of tenure, because it's temporary, and so on? Who speaks for you? Who is the permanent person voice in that room and the most qualified? Who speaks on behalf of those persons who change their outcome, who change their life? It has to be you. So when God gives you insight and you are humbly presenting what you know so that it can heal and bless and inspire and impact and grow people, you're not being arrogant to speak. It's your stewardship. And many of us miss our stewardship and shut down our purpose or put it in dormancy or delayed so that we can make people comfortable and there can be peace. And so we want to explain that a man persuaded against his will is not persuading, he's still unpersuaded. And so you are just giving them more ammunition to make that noise, the most noise. And that noise doesn't serve anyone. And sometimes persons get real upset with you and make you further erode your confidence because they feel that why do you allow this? And they now find that they can't trust you. And they know they can't trust you, so they begin to speak for themselves. And in speaking for themselves, they speak against you because it is also in their purview very difficult and very challenging and taxing to address the elephant in the room, because that person might have some authority also, some influence because of connections, and they are depending on you. And so we have to understand why it is important to build back our confidence after we feel we are shut down or there is burnout. And so self-care doesn't help you at that time because self-care is not what you need at that time. It's soul care. It's getting back your confidence, getting back your voice. It's nourishment that keeps you leading from the inside and not have you leaking from places that you were not supposed. So here I say, this is when silence isn't golden. And some of us are very strong, courageous people. We started out very confident, knowing what we are about, but we became we were unintentionally silenced when we are constantly misunderstood in boardrooms. And let me explain, like I'm speaking to leaders, especially female leaders. I'm speaking to you. How are you misunderstanding boardrooms when you are asked to make a vote? Your vote becomes the deciding vote to destroy a life, and you decide that you are moving towards grace. And so you do not vote. You are the descending vote, and you are disliked. There is tension when you are being related to, and there are ways that persons try to block you in your daily career, day-to-day operations. And so you also become labeled. And when you become labeled too much, you lose your confidence because you are unintentionally silenced. And then there is a case, in the same case, where you become overlooked when strategic decisions are made and you are the direct and final accountable officer. You are the leader, but you'll find that the persons in that boardroom goes around you and make decisions when you have to be unavoidably absent on your organizational business, or you're on a retreat that is also important for the organization, and they make strategic decisions and leave you out of the loop and inform you when you get back. And then there are some, as we speak to Christian leaders, because I'm a Christian leadership coach, that become spiritually discouraged after failing or being rejected. And that drives your confidence to the ground and silences your voice in a very, very effective way. So let's see if you can relate now. How do you get the courage to speak up under pressure? Let's look at Esther. Esther risked her life to approach a king when a nation would have been destroyed by someone who thought that they would have become thorns in their flesh. A simple issue like that. Not that the persons did anything wrong, not that these persons were interfering on the life path of anyone. They were just doing their own little thing in their own little way and worshiping in the ways, in their cultural, traditional ways that they knew how. And here comes this gentleman who felt that no, he must control them and they must be under some duress. And Esther, a female, took the courage under pressure to risk her life to approach a king to say, this is what is happening. Do you know? This is how it is going to affect people. However, she did not rush into it unprepared. She fasted. She thought wise counselors. She thought the direction of God, and then she spoke. And that speaking became very effective to change lives and to change deadly outcomes. So persons were able to create a life that felt good on the inside and not one that just looked good on the outside. Very important. And so sometimes we are asked and given roles and responsibilities so that we can speak up and relieve the suffering and distress of other persons that are in that same organization. We are given certain types of eyes. What about leading in a male-dominated culture? Deborah was one of those persons. Good morning, Paris. Thanks for joining. Deborah was one of those persons that was leading in a male-dominated culture. She became the only and the first prophetess and judge for Israel at a time when women weren't publicly leading. And guess what happened? Israel experienced 40 years of peace as against when they were male leaders before. And she was able to make that change, to change that life, to change that outcome. She was able to make history, despite the fact that it's a Bible story, because she spoke boldly after she listened to God. And so it's very important that we understand that confidence comes with clarity and alignment. When you know your purpose and understand your purpose, you are able to live it boldly. And so, as I said before, you take rest and you take pauses to become more self-aware, to nourish your soul, to look inside of you, to ensure that you're on the path, to see what are the strategic actions that you need to make at this point, if you need to turn back and recover something that you left behind. What is it that you need to do? How you trigger others and what triggers you? You want to make sure that you take those rest periods. I call them sacred stops in the last session, and that you have your purpose anchors netted so that you know what you're doing. Persons who lose confidence lose that sacred stop where they are so busy pouring into others that they are emptying themselves, and they are not understanding, they are not reflowing, they are not realigning, they are not focusing, because they are so busy pouring into others. They are tired and they need to rest, but the tiredness is not physical, it is the soul fatigue that comes from a purpose starvation, or being out of alignment, or pouring into callings excellently and well that were never yours, or carrying burdens that you were never created to carry. Those were not your burdens. But because you're not focused, because you're not listening, you're not in tune with your core values, with yourself, with God, you're not meditating, you're not reflecting, then you find yourself keeping going. It's like you're going on a treadmill. And the evidence, very good, Nicole, I agree, will change as we grow and try new things. Yes, it's very important to trust yourself no matter what stage you are at. And you trust yourself when you're able to press into your purpose. And pressing in your purpose requires you to be consciously aware of what is it that you do well and what you're called to do, the problem you were created to solve, and how you were created to solve, and why you are where you are at, and what is your assignment when you are where you are at. Very important. And you have to do this by understanding your place in the divine script, where your divine script falls, and what your gifts and unique gifts and talents equipped you to do, and where it is equipping you to do that work. And I help persons, Christian leaders especially, females, to find that connection and bridge that gap and integrate their balancing of their faith and their career with their unique gifts and talents, and also doing it profitably. So there are persons who would want to move up in their organizations and use their gifts and talents to serve and joyfully work. And there's others who want to transition in a brilliant business idea. And there are others who God is calling to do something else that you will decide might not be a business idea, might not be moving up, but a service, a ministry that helps persons in a particular way. So that is where we're at. Now we want to also look at moving from insecurity to impact, because there are persons who do that. Moses started out when he was sent to Pharaoh to say, I'm not eloquent, send someone else. We know that story. God did give him someone else, Aaron, but God didn't wait until he became polished. God sent him as he was, and he grew and he developed. As he began to deliver the message, he became more confident because he knew what the purpose was, so much so that he ended up moving away from his comfort zone into a very uncomfortable place. And the journey became burdensome, and he took his sacred stops. He went to the mountain, those types of things. So sometimes it's very important that we understand that our confidence can be restored, our soul can heal, and we can retrieve our soul by taking those steps and doing what is required to do. So we understand that part. So what am I saying? What are the practical tips to regain your confidence and speak with boldness? Because that's where we start in this session. We are going to go further. In the next session, next Tuesday, we're going to talk about the other side of it. But now I just want to look at confidence, building back your confidence and reclaiming your voice. Because sometimes we lose our voice. Yes, bringing alignment with your purpose gives the clarity you need to take decisive action. That's important. Very, very important. Knowing what you're about, knowing your why, and focusing and living your why does not destroy you. It's not pressure. It's not burden. It sometimes will make you reframe where you are. It makes you pause sometimes. It's a refocusing and a rebuilding, and it's gradual and it is consistent. As you fulfill the assignment at each level of your commissioned, because your commission, your purpose is a commission, a divine commission to create, to solve a problem, the problem that you were created to solve. And when God gives you your purpose and stamps you for that role and to solve that problem, no human hand can change that. And even when you deviate, even when you detour, if it's still the last day you live, you're gonna fulfill it because you want to focus. You have to focus. And I say it every time. There are some persons who have put their purpose in dormancy so much because of the expectations that are on them from family and from community and friends. And I give examples. And because of the pressure to please and this their idea of what success was and what achievement was. On their deathbed, they say, okay, if I had to live my life over, I would have been a nurse. I would have served best there. So I want you to use what I'm leaving behind to help persons who want to take up nursing as a calling but have difficulty create a scholarship or a foundation. And that carries out the purpose. Even if it's the last day that they're living on earth, they realize what it is and they make preparations to have that fulfilled. So many times persons say that if I had my life to do over, I would never be in business. I would actually be doing this. And they explain it and they give you why, and they're confident at that time. And they look back. Some of them say, when I look back, this is where I think I would fit. And there are some persons who catch that light at a particular stage in their life when it appeared to be impossible. And then they fit in so well and they get so much joy and fulfillment and they are so happy and self-actualized that some person says it's as if you have taken 10 years off your life. You look so much different. Your demeanor is different. You seem to be have some peace, something that I can't even describe. It's because they are fitting to their purpose. It doesn't mean that the road is easy and that there are not challenges, but the challenges are taken in stride and they are taken in the context of what they are, hindrances and obstacles that can be overcome because I know what the end will be. I see clearly where I want to go. And these are just hurdles that I see that I will jump over because I keep the destination in mind. And so that's very important. And so the first thing I would say to recover your boldness is to reconnect with your why. You want to ask the question, why did God give me this vision, this role, this influence? Where and when do I feel silenced or small? You want to make that. You want to make that. Ask yourself that question. And I want to repeat it just for emphasis. You want to reconnect with your why. These are practical tips to speak boldly again or to speak with boldness again, to recover your confidence and your voice and reclaim your voice, not to be shut down by the many voices that want you to please them, not to be shut down by the strategic overlook, not to be shut down by the failure or the mistakes that you make or even by rejection. You want to be able to reclaim your boldness and your voice because those situations can take a toll on you and make you lose sight of your why and also of who you are and make you lose hope and belief in yourself. And sometimes these failures and these rejections are just the right things that must happen to you at a particular time to nudge you into your purpose and your calling. There are many persons who have suffered great loss and have rebuilt much stronger and greater and take by taking a different path, just taking a different path because that crisis forced them into taking stock and to reframe and to get in alignment with what's really the goal and what really resonates with their soul and what really illuminates their core values and give them a reason to be joyfully living and profiting from what are your natural gifts and talents. And so you want to look at where and when you feel silenced or small and keep asking, why did God give me this vision, this role, this influence? As I said, you must have a purpose anchor and it must be visible, must be very visible. So you must be sure about what it is that you have been given and you must know how you want to use what you have been given and you must be absolutely sure about those who you were sent to who needs what you have been given, and you need to focus. In other jurisdiction and in other industries like coaching, we call it your niche. All right. So we want to speak your truth, not just agreement. So you want to choose truth when it's not trendy. You want to speak the truth. You know, there is a saying which I use very much, it's my mantra. The greatest want of men are men who cannot be bought or sold, men who are true to duty as a needle to the pole. And it's in my first book, A Leader Like You, my first leadership book, because that was not my first book. And it says, men who will stand for truth, those the heaven fall. That's the greatest want of men. It's not an original quote, but it's a quote that I always use so I can be true to myself and not be false to other men. So I choose truth at all times, even when it is not trendy. And you don't have to be low. This boldness, when you choose truth, doesn't mean you have to be low. You just have to be focused on being aligned and resilient. And there's a simple thing, for example, I'll give an example. You might be in an organization where there's a janitor. You are the leader. The janitor has an emergency, and you were told, you gave the janitor the time off, and you just did the work for the janitor. You're preparing a room for a meeting, it would be the janitor. You just go in and prepare. You really don't assign it to anyone. That's living the truth that all men are equal, and that you want to treat people the way you would have want to be treated if the situation was reversed. If that is your truth, then that is how you would demonstrate your truth, and you would live that truth, and persons would see. Because there is realignment and there's resilience and there's individuality and authenticity being shown there, honesty and transparency. And so, how do you think that lady will feel, or that man, when he comes back? Very valued and appreciated. And the trust and the meaningful connection would have been built. And so, your truth would now be in agreement, and it would not be trendy, because there are persons who would not necessarily do that, and so the meeting would have to maybe be kept in another room that is cleaner, and so on. But if we are authentic, and if we understand service and what it means to change lives and income and outcomes and transform and grow and impact and inspire people, then we understand this little truth and what it means and how it cascades through an organization and make persons buy into your vision because they trust you and they can prove your influence and your impact in their life. So you become significant. You become how you make people feel is very important, and how you serve people. They remember that. And he tells that story, or she, over and over and over. And it builds your influence and your impact, and it builds your trust, because this disciple now is gathering other disciples, and it's speaking from a place of knowing, a place of revelation, and not a theory point. And that in itself is not seen as truth, but truth is delivered in those ways in organizations. You need to be spirit led also, not emotion driven. So before hard conversations, ask God to give you the words that heal and not just win, especially when you're going to negotiate. That heals and not just win. Let God lead your timing and your tone, so you know when to say what. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining. Yes, thank you so much. All right, so we want to look also at how you start to speak in safe places. And this is the bomber for me. This is the one that I love so much. Let your voice warm up places where grace does not abound. What do I mean by that? Speak where you are sent. You don't wait for a stage to make the truth known or to highlight it. Practice truth when you're coaching, when you're in your prayer groups, when you're in your planning sessions, when you're having your staff meeting. Practice truth. Make it be simple, and make it be loving, make it be helpful, make it create change, and make it leave an aroma in that room that makes sense to people and that radiates and are left on people even when you leave the room. Let you be known as somebody that they can trust, they can respect, they can go to if they need a realistic punch on things. Someone who they know has integrity inside and outside. Someone who they undeniable can confess to persons as being authentic because you're speaking in those places, those safe places. You want to warm up those places as a leader in all of those places where truth, grace does not abound. That is one way I want to put it. That's very important. I also want you to understand that you must affirm your identity daily. Say, I am called to speak. My voice carries light. I will not shrink to keep others comfortable. Very, very important. Very, very important. And so these are your reflection questions as I wind down. Where or when did I first begin to silence my voice? Who or what taught me that my words were too much? What message do I carry that someone else needs to hear? And whose outcome or life am I appointed to change? You want to ask yourself those deep reflexive questions because boldness, recovering your confidence, and reclaiming your voice is not a personality trait, it's a kingdom assignment. Very powerful assignment. And so there are 3 steps to strive from the inside. I want to give you these 3 steps for you to strive from the inside as you focus on building back your confidence and reclaiming your voice. You want to reflect. Reflect on the moments when fear replaced faith. And then you want to realign. Don't make permanent decisions in temporary overwhelm. Make sure you affirm your calling and that you practice your truth telling in daily leadership. And then you want to refuel, meaning that you pray daily for discernment and journal your decisions. So you want to go back and look at them. You want to talk to God about them. You want to create that feeling in the inside that doesn't just look good on the outside. You want to build back that whole person. And that's very important, very, very important. I am having a summer bonanza for personal development of persons who just want to realign or want to refocus. I'm also looking at beginning and new leaders who want to have a trajectory to take them to integrate on how to integrate their faith and also their gifts and talents in the position that they're in so their role can be amplified and they can be joyful at work. So I'm offering those 2 drives. I will send the slides out very soon and I will have those persons who encourage those persons who feel the need, especially female leaders, to pull onto that, to get some personal development in, and to get the strategies on how to uplift your vision and your purpose, joyfully profiting. That's where it is. So you lead equipped and not empty. And that's where I want it. The challenge I want you to do also is that I want you to speak a healing truth over whatever the issue you are dealing with. Replace a lie with purpose aligned truth. Example, I am sent to heal, change a life, and change an outcome. That is my truth that I have. I'm not responsible for everyone's outcomes. I lead from overflow and not depletion. And so I tend to focus on my why, my purpose in my different dispensation as a motivational speaker, as an author, as a leadership consultant, and as a life purpose coach. I tend to pull people in that way. I also serve persons in relation to coaching them through their dissertation, helping them to write their paper and put it together as a curriculum and instruction and research specialist, which is one of my certifications in my PhD. And then I look at leading adults into pulling themselves from where they are to where they ought to be. And sometimes you want to be in a place because of the comfort illusion and the productivity illusion. And so you resist getting into the right place, smugly fitting into a better place because of the risks and the choices that you have to make and the pivot. And sometimes that becomes very difficult. And so I help you to do that also. All right. So as we look at the leadership challenge, I say if this conversation resonates with you, I want you to take the next step. So you want to book your soul sync strategy session or join one of those summer specials that will be out there for you. So in these sessions, we can all work together to realign your leadership, your calling, and your life or your soul health for sustainable impact in 2025 and beyond. If you're not quite ready though, you can do your purpose alignment audit and you can schedule a call and we take it from there. And so I want to thank you so much for joining this morning. And I say, may your Tuesday be peaceful, intentional, and purpose filled. Have a great week. Go out today and create a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside. God bless. See you next week where we continue this series and we look at the other two aspects of building your confidence, your vision, and your voice. All right?